Lindon, thank you so much for coming on today. And we first met you in 2009, I believe it was, at the Southeast Hip Hop Championships that we run. So sadly, we only run one event of those, but we really, really enjoyed it. We had some fantastic people join us, and you with Elements was one. How old was you then?
So I believe it was actually 2007, which makes me 15.
Wow, oh, wow. Was it really 27?
Oh, yeah, because by 2009 I was in college. So yeah, I think it was 2007, and it was like we've been running Elements for just about a year from the sort of September before. And yeah, I would have been about 15 then. So in my last year of school, I think I was.
Right, wow. I remember you specifically because you were so keen. There was only you and perhaps a few others that followed it up afterwards, looking for another event. And
yeah,
again, for sure. And here we are, so many years later.
Yeah, I really like the fact that it was like a competition, but it was in a theatre. It wasn't just in a sports hall, for example. So you got that feeling of performing on the stage. The judges that you guys had was like crazy. I remember it was Mark Summers who actually signed me after the event, and that was my first ever dance agent. So that was like a big introduction for me. I remember he gave me like his business card and stuff, and I was like, what's this? I didn't even know like, you know, really who he was. I'd probably looked him up prior to the competition. And like, I think Marlon was there and Showtime from America. So I remember it being like, it was a big deal. That's why I was like, can we do this again?
DJ hosted it, yeah.
I think we had
Yeah, and Kimberly, yeah.
It's just, there's so many people there that were sort of on the brink of fame, or you know, having the credit that they deserve just before that moment. So it was quite,
we were very lucky.
We were very lucky. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think the UK scene kind of like blossomed, let's say, around 2008 and then into 2009 when Frauds and Diversity did everything on BGC and that. So I think that they were like the golden years of like 2006, 7, 8 and into 9 when everyone was coming up still. So I remember there was like, yeah, there was loads of good people there. There was loads of amazing crews.
Yeah, absolutely. I think did Turbo was there as well, I think. He was in the solo section. But yeah, we were so lucky. We look back at that now and just, yeah, it's definitely something to keep hold of. That's for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
I would love to do it again, but I think it's so monopolised now. Things. But you know,
you never know.
You never know. But yourself, obviously, not just a performer. You're a choreographer and on the creative side of things as well. So, have you had a constant career throughout from the moment that you started, when we first met you at least? Has it been a constant journey of stuff, or has there been moments where you've like, dance is not for me?
No, it's always been something that's consistent. But what I've always done is sat in between like dancer, choreographer, teacher, just out of chance really. I never sat there and said, I want to be a choreographer. And like, you know, I teach a lot of students now and that's their aim, and they might be like 14, 15, but they just want to be a choreographer. Whereas I never like set out to be that. I think from obviously like running my own crew and stuff that then turned into a company, I was being a choreographer without really knowing that that's what it was. In my head, I was just the guy that made up the moves. Like I wasn't like, oh, I'm the choreographer and, you know, you guys are like my pawns and I'm going to move you around, do this. It was more collaborative at that time. Yes, I was like the leader, but other people obviously can contribute to choreography as well. And then I was learning to teach again without really knowing it. So I think because I've never just been like a dancer, let's say, and not had any other kind of idea of what I want to do, that's where it's been constant. So it's been like a year of doing loads of dance stuff, and then the next year I might just like teach for like pretty much a year, and then maybe something creative will come up that takes my focus that way for a little bit, and then I'll always come back to dancing. Like I always have that buzz of wanting to be on stage. So sometimes if I have a couple of years where it's like more creative or more teaching based, I'll be like, I just need to like go on stage and get someone else to tell me what to do for a little while.
Amazing. Well, we're gonna get right into that in some of the questions that we're gonna come to. So this whole interview is gonna give our members and hopefully other dance enthusiasts a nice insight into your career and perhaps some advice along the way. So I'm gonna pass over to Vic.
So importantly, firstly, how are you and how have you found 2020?
The burning question on everyone's lips, I guess. I think personally, I've actually enjoyed a lot of the year. I was like crazy 100 miles an hour, show to show, into London, out of London, crazy for such a long period of time that when that sort of pause button, let's say, got hit on the 16th of March or whenever it was that the show I was in got stopped, it was actually a breath of fresh air for me personally. And I can't lie about that. You know, I think I actually needed a break. We had, like, I was in the middle of Mesh in a Bottle in West End, and we had one more week left in town, and then we were doing a tour for, I believe, about 7 or 8 weeks in Europe. So obviously I would have loved to have done the 2 months that I had, but already I was feeling like I need a break. So I knew that after those 2 months, I was going to have like a break for myself. So for me, the break just came early. Obviously, none of us expected to still be in this kind of situation, I guess, now, because even though we're not in, let's say, a lockdown, we just came out of the second one. It wasn't as strict as the first, but we're still in this situation. So I think at the start, it was very much like, oh yeah, I've got a break. Like, I've never had a break. I think the last sort of break I remember was maybe like when I finished my GCSEs and I had that long summer, because from there I went straight to college and I just started working. And then, you know, as a dancer, self-employed, you never feel like it's okay to stop. So yeah, it was nice for me to have that moment in time. I live with my fiance, and like we just don't see each other very much because of, you know, she works in the industry as well, and it's like crazy. So for once, both of us were just at home. So it was actually, personally, I think it did a lot of good. However, obviously, it's a terrible situation to be in. I haven't necessarily questioned my career choices in terms of like, will I still do what I do? But it's definitely made me think about moving forward into the future, and planning like what sort of steps I need to put in place to make sure that if something like this happens again, or just to, like, you know, if you have an injury as a performer, like anything can stop you right there and then. So it's kind of like, where are your other outlets to make sure that you can still survive like as a human? Because I think it's definitely shown everyone that we can plan, and I'm like a crazy like planner. I will always plan what's coming next and try and be organized. But actually, if the world wants to do something, it's going to happen regardless of what we've done. So I think, yeah, it's been very, very insightful. It's been great to just have a moment to just think about a lot of things, and also just not think about stuff for a while as well. Not worry about work, just let it happen, and like, you know, maybe just take some time out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect. I love hearing stories like that where people have literally just taken this break by the horns and just gone deep with it. I think that's perfect. It's pretty much similar to us, isn't it? We've had to do exactly the same. I think that answer is probably the answer for most people in the performing arts, because they have had to, you know, we've taken such a massive hit. Work wise, dancing wise, have you had many jobs in the lockdown, or?
So at the start, again, I was very much like, I'm taking my break. So I didn't really teach, just because I hadn't been teaching for a while. So I felt like for me to just sort of jump back into teaching and do it online, I thought it was probably unfair on the people that had been doing the teaching, like covering my classes and stuff like that. And also I just felt like I didn't want to communicate with my students like that. I wanted to see them in the studio, because obviously I kind of thought like, hey, it'll be a couple of months and then we'll be back in the studio. Great, you know? So yeah, I did take a bit of time. And then when things started to reopen in sort of July, I did a few bits and bobs over the summer. I actually did like a performing sort of little contract over the summer, which was called Goggle Dance, which was like, I was going to people's houses and performing outside for them, and they were like watching, and it was filming their reactions, but they were watching through like the window. So it's like a little series just to kind of bring art to people, and kind of off the back of COVID, obviously, but also just people that maybe haven't gone to the theatre before, even when they were open. Maybe they don't get out to the theatre very much because of whatever reason, or like we did it back down in Bournemouth and Poole area. I think that there is one theatre that we partnered with down there, but it's not the West End. You know, you haven't got a choice of all these different shows. So it's just about like, okay, maybe we can go to people rather than them coming to us, as long as obviously we do it in like a COVID secure way. And then since then, kind of into September, I just took it on myself to become more of a teacher role. And now I can get back in the studios. Obviously, I like went full force with that, connected with like my old students and places that I was teaching before I was in the show, and also like just reached out to some new places as well, and just thought like I've got all this experience from performing for the last couple of years where I haven't been teaching as much, like I might as well use it now. And if I just saw it as a teaching season. So luckily for me, I feel very fortunate that like now I'm on my feet and I know where I'm going. And if shows and stuff come back, well, when they come back, you know, they're already sort of coming back, which is nice. But if a contract sort of came up for me, I would have the option to obviously maybe go for that or stay with what I'm doing. So yeah, it's been like a slow rebuild and definitely like a rethink. I think that's the main thing. You just have to not be stuck in your way, and not, I don't really like change, but you have to just adapt to it, don't you, really?
Absolutely.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
it's great that you've got the skill set to be able to not just perform and teach, because they're two separate things essentially.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, definitely.
And that talent is handy to keep yourself going in times like this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
yeah, for sure.
So that's sort of where we are now. What about right at the beginning? So when was the first moment that you realised that you enjoyed dance or wanted to take it further?
Well, I was always around dance, like when I was young, which was like really young, because my sister is a performer as well. So she used to go to like a local kind of dance school, and then she moved to Bodywork in Cambridge. And from just sort of being there, I was just sort of hanging around. And apparently it was my decision to say like, oh, I want to start class or whatever it was. And at the time it was a jazz class that I started, but it was more towards like the kind of like street jazz side of things, let's say. I guess to, you know, just inspire some of the younger people, especially like males coming up. Like I was 6 and this would have been like 1998. So like, you know, for boys to dance, it's that period of time when, you know, you're not going to get many boys in the class basically. So yeah, I just saw it because I was there and I was around it. And from there, it kind of just blossomed and I was sort of asked to do more classes. And then I think when I was about, I want to say I was about 9 years old, they actually started like a street dance class. And that was with Stuart Bishop, who runs Rudai agency, because he trained at Bodywork. So he was like a student there. And then he started doing more of the street styles, like sort of popping, locking and choreographic stuff like that. Yeah, and it just escalated from there, really. With the street dance classes that I was doing, because they often used like a younger teacher who was training at the college, let's say. You kind of got a new teacher every year or every couple of years. So it was always quite current, which was nice. We had like one teacher come over from America who was like studying at the college, and then she sort of brought the more American way. And that's when I started to understand like more of the hip hop grooves and stuff like that. So it was just like, yeah, being around it, I guess, and then just taking classes and just kind of investing myself in it. And yeah, I just enjoyed it really. And I just kept going with it. It was my thing. I think it's really good when like a young person can find like their thing at a young age, because you can just invest all your time into it and just go full out.
Absolutely. Good for you in 98 going and doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially at that time as well, when you say that you know, at that time there wasn't a lot of males and boys in the classes, which was really sad to see. But for you to stick at it through that as well, it is amazing. And that's what we love about a street dance as well, is there's so many boys and it's so lovely. We got 50-50 and I love seeing it. For you to stick at it in that time, we attended a school at the same time and there was only about 2 boys. So yeah, for you to stick at it, I think it's really, really good. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, and I think this is something that I've really been thinking about recently, because with everything that's come out in the media about our jobs not being viable and this and that, like I've been facing criticism for doing what I do all my life. So the fact that someone said it on BBC, it really doesn't bother me, because I've heard it so many times before and I've heard it from people that I actually care about. So like to hear someone say it on there, I'm just like,
sure.
All right, cool, like whatever. The joke is like there's plenty of us out here doing this for a living and we're paying our taxes, so you know we're making money. So you can't say that it's not a career, because like, you know, we live our lives off of this. So yeah, I think the criticism or the challenges, I guess, that I faced from a young age, it's like it just makes you stronger, doesn't it? And kind of like gives you a bit of a thick skin. And again, if you know you want to do something, like you just got to do it, no matter what people say or what anyone else kind of thinks about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and when you say about thick skin as well, I mean, I don't think there is another profession or career that will build a thicker skin than a performance job.
Because you're always getting tested. Even when you think you're strong, someone will knock you down somewhere. And it's like, oh, okay, that's another layer I need to build on top that maybe I didn't know I had.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we need to teach a few little lessons to the people up high. I think they need to come and for a little while.
Yeah. Interject us for 1 second, because this is quite current. What are your feelings on the Olympics taking on breaking now?
Yeah, I think it's great. First and foremost, I think it's a positive thing. I know there's some people that are like, oh, it's some people from the breaking world that think that maybe it shouldn't be looked at in that light and that it was going to ruin certain aspects of the culture. And then I think there's people who don't know what breaking is, but as far as they're concerned, it's not a sport. I think it's amazing to take a dance form and put it in that light, especially something that's so athletic, so demanding as breaking. And I'm not saying that any of the other styles aren't. I just think maybe breaking is easier for the general public to understand from a competition point of view. And then obviously it's got the competition rooted in the culture as well. So yeah, I think it's a great thing. I think the right people are there. Crazy Legs is there sorting it out. Renegade's there, putting his knowledge and everything into it. It'll be really interesting to see who competes, because obviously with Olympic athletes, it's not the same as breaking, where in our culture, people are still competing at a certain age, but Olympic sportsmen tend to be younger, especially when you look at the gymnasts from sort of China and that, and you've got them coming out in their early teens. So it'd be really interesting to see what the teams are from different places around the world. But I think anything that brings our career to light and shows people that actually, not only is it crazy difficult, but it is a viable career, I think can only be positive for everyone that's involved with it.
Yeah, it's definitely a step in the right direction. Like you say, if it's got the right people behind it, it's going to have the right intentions. I think my only question was, obviously that's one of so many styles that require such skill, a toe dip in the water, but it's a good toe dip.
And I think, do other styles deserve to be there as well? Yes, of course, but will the public accept it? Will the general public even be able to understand it? And I think breaking is the first one. So let's see how that goes. And then maybe, other styles can get in there. But at the same time, I don't know, maybe it's something that stands alone, and it is an Olympic sport, and the others, maybe the dance competitions get bigger and get more publicity off the back of breaking being in the Olympics, and things like Just the Boo are now household names. It's not just the dancers that know about these competitions, or maybe BC1, which obviously is a breaking competition, becomes more popular by general public because they're always used to seeing breaking in the Olympics. So I think it's going to do good for the dance events as well.
Yeah, that's very true story.
Okay, so we touched on your sister going to bodywork, but so you went to bodywork as well, and you trained there in multiple styles. What made you choose bodywork? Was it because your sister went there?
For me, I was 16, and it was kind of my parents said to me, basically, you can either go to bodywork now at 16 and do your training, or you can wait until you're 18 and you can audition wherever you want. And if that means you want to go to London or wherever else, you can do that. And I just knew that at that moment in my life, I didn't want to do another 2 years in education, in school education, let's say, whether that be A levels or BTEC. I knew what I wanted to do, and I just wanted to do it. And I was comfortable where I was, not in a way of being sort of lazy, but I just felt why would I not go there? I enjoyed the teachers. I'd already known what kind of happened within the college. I'd done work experience, I think, at the college. The college and theatre school was all sort of connected in a way. So I had friends that were there. So it just seemed like the obvious choice. There was no reason not to go, let's say. So I was just that's what I want to do. And it was a pretty simple decision for me.
Oh, perfect.
So in terms of being a bodywork, 2 questions. What was your main takeaway from college, in your learning there? And also, what would be your advice to youngsters that are aspiring to go to college? How would you advise them to choose the right one?
So in terms of takeaways, I think I had 2 really strong kind of teachers and mentors, let's say. One was my ballet teacher, Shirley Rees Edwards, and the other would be the principal, Teresa Kerr. And I think like from between them two, I really understood what discipline was and what professionalism was. Let's say discipline more from the ballet side and professionalism more from the principal. But that was the two things that I really like. From a young age, I knew what theatre etiquette was. I knew that I had to turn up on time with the right costume or uniform. I knew how to conduct myself. And I think moving forward into the professional industry, as someone who sits in the hip hop world, to be professional is already like a step up. Because you just know exactly how to conduct yourself, how to present yourself. And it's like the first steps of actually making it a business. And as much as like I love it and I'd never want to take like a full business head on it, at the end of the day, it is our business. And that's one thing that is often sort of forgotten about at college, I would say, because it's very much like about the technique and about the art form and about the performance, which is all so important. But if you don't have some sort of business, unless you're really lucky, you're not going to really make a career out of it. And, you know, I'm sure everyone's seen people who are not the most talented, let's say, or skilled dancers, but they have an amazing career because they're really good at networking. They turn up on time. They know what they're doing. They never give anyone a hard time. People want to work with them because of the energy that they bring, not necessarily how many like pirouettes they can do or whatever.
Such a good point.
I think it's changed a lot now from obviously when it was I was in those shoes, and there's a lot more options. So I think it's good to like scout out your options. I very much think it's like buying a house or renting a house. You walk in somewhere and you'll get a feeling like, okay, I can be here. I can be comfortable here. I can live here. I can stay here for 3 years or whatever it is. So I think it's really like a personal choice. On the flip side, I do believe that most of the institutions offer a similar training. So I think like as long as you go to one that, you know, is kind of recognized, let's say, you're going to get a certain level of training that everybody kind of gets. It just might be that a couple specialize in a few different areas. So I think it's good to just research into like who's been there, who teaches there. Obviously most colleges have like industry connections and stuff. So are they more musical theatre connections? Are they more commercial connections? Are they more contemporary? Like what is it that you want to do? And where in a third year, let's say, when the college is gearing you for the industry, where are they pushing you? Because if their focus is solely musical theatre, but you want to work as a commercial dancer, maybe it's not the right place for you, and vice versa. But I think the base level of training is very similar. And I always advise everyone to go and do that training because, you know, whatever, especially now, if I was like a training now, I'd be happy because the industry's got to rebuild itself. So you might as well stay at college and train yourself up, because in 3 years' time, everything will be so much stronger than it is right now. So I never think like, don't jump the training. Don't maybe think that you can just do like a year intensive somewhere and that's it. I do think it's important for majority of people to go through that training and just that experience as well, that life experience of understanding, like working with a group of people every day, like having to be there at the time that they tell you, having to do a lesson that you really don't want to do, and, you know, just kind of getting on with it.
Yeah, I think you need that, especially at that age when you go. I know myself when I was that age, you need that gap to learn about yourself and grow up that little bit before you go in. And yeah, I think that's such a great point. Yeah.
So in terms of the advice for young people aspiring to go, it's really understand a rough pathway of what you're looking to do eventually to help you find the right one. Yourself. I think if people come from somewhere like our dance school, for example, we just specialise in one thing. So if they want to then go into the industry, they need to be versatile and have, you know, education.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's why there's sort of like foundation years at places. I think it's great. Sometimes people go and do a foundation year at one college, and then within that year they'll find out about another college, and then that's when they do their 3 years. I think like sometimes we just want to get there quick. It's that kind of Instagram generation of like post it online and get success straight away. And it's like, actually, this stuff takes years. Like everyone that I know and everyone that I'm inspired by, is still training. Like I'm still training. So the fact that you're worrying about doing 3 years at college, I'm like, you're just looking for quick success, and that's not what dance is. It's like an everlasting like training cycle that we go on. So and I think it's just important to put that time into it and be patient, and know that your goals might change along the way as well. And then maybe you'll want to go and do a graduate year somewhere else, or go to LA and train there for a bit, or wherever.
Before Vic continues, do you think it's sort of this current culture in general? Everything's fast paced. Everything's even build a website in 3 seconds. It's not quite 3 seconds, but that's the mentality.
Yeah, or don't even do a website, just have Instagram.
Yeah, exactly.
It's quicker. Like, yeah.
I couldn't agree more. So from bodywork, did you go straight into professional work, or did you continue some training, or was it straight in for you?
So while I was there, I made 2 trips to LA to like further my training. So I went at the end of my 2nd year in the summer, and then I went halfway through my 3rd year as well. So that was my kind of like extra training that I felt I just needed to top up with. And again, because it was like an overall training, whereas I was particularly interested in hip hop and commercial styles, I used to obviously like go and train when I could, like whether that be class at Pineapple. I joined Boy Blue in my 3rd year as well. So that was like my hip hop side. So I definitely added to it and got from other places. In terms of working, I was quite lucky with the opportunities that I was given. I did quite a few jobs when I was at college, some through the college and some off my own back through agencies that I had made connections with. So I did a few bits. I would say my first, like what I always refer to as my first job was at the end of my 2nd year. And then through 3rd year, I was lucky to be able to work on and off. And it was always a good thing, because I knew that, if I went to an audition, I could always go back to college the next day if I didn't get the job. So it was nice to have that fallback. Whereas obviously when you leave, it's like you do the audition, and then if you don't get it, like you can't pay your rent. So it was nice to know that actually I could audition and test the industry a little bit, test myself and try things out when I had college to kind of fall back on as well. And they were very good to me in that sense of letting me go and do things, because the jobs that I would be auditioning for were like a couple of days. It wasn't like I was going to just leave for like indefinitely. But at the same time, one of the boys in my year went into Lion King in like halfway through 3rd year. Another boy was in Shoes in the West End. So like we were all kind of trying to get our foot through the door before we finished college, which is hard because the colleges have got like things to meet, like attendance criteria. They've got to do their final shows. They need you there, but then they also want you to go out and work, because that's the whole idea of it,
Yeah, that's it. Because essentially you're a walking advert for them, aren't you?
Well, that's the thing. The good thing is when you go and see a West End show, let's say, you open the program and it's like you see all the names of where these people trained, and then that's going to inspire the next generation to go to these colleges. So it's to and from, isn't it? It works both ways.
Yeah. So coming out of college, what was your first job? And then from that, obviously you've had such a fantastic career so far, and from what at least you've listed online that we've read about, and things that we've seen on your Insta. But so your first job, what have been your 3 favourite jobs?
Ooh.
It's hard. So the first job that first big job that I did was an advert for FIFA, and that was at the end of my 2nd year. And then throughout 3rd year, I started working with an artist called Cher Lloyd from X Factor. If you remember her, Yep. So I started working with her like the end of 3rd year, and that kind of continued. So my first sort of job outside of like when I left was working with her and doing like various TV shows and stuff like that. Favorite job, it's really hard, because like one thing that I always say is I've been lucky to have so many different experiences. I did the Olympics like the year after I graduated. And that was with Kenrick and with Boy Blue, and with like 80 professional dancers who were pretty much all like kind of friends, and everyone was linked. And to do that, it was such a big moment in just like British history, let alone dance. So to do that, it will be something that I don't think any of us will ever forget. And it's something that you look back on and go, as if we actually did the Olympics. Like at the time, we just did it because we were like 19. It was like, yeah, whatever, like we're doing the Olympics, And we rehearsed it so many times that even when we came to do it, we had like earphones in and stuff, so you couldn't really hear the crowd. I remember I took my earphones out at one point because I wanted to just like understand what was going on. So I think because it was like, actually we did it so many times, it wasn't until you finish the job that you're like, that was like pretty cool. And to do it with, you know, some of my like best friends, and also some of the people that I'd looked up to from a young age, and now to see where, again, some of the younger ones like myself have gone, it's like, there's such a great group of people. I don't think they'll ever, well, I've never known another cast like that, let's say. So that was definitely a highlight.
What an incredible feeling that must have been on there. I mean, the sound from a crowd is always, I say, the best feeling in the world anyway. But if you're at the Olympics and hearing that, that must have been amazing.
Yeah, I think it was like 80,000 at the time in that stadium.
Is that
We'd done like dress runs with like 60,000. So it was like, this is just crazy. It almost felt like you were doing like a tour, because you were doing it over and over again, but at the same venue.
Wow. So cool. Would you say that was your biggest crowd you've ever performed to?
Yeah, that must have been. I think apart from obviously like TV, but it's not live. I think that has to be the biggest one. Yeah, I think that's maybe. I'm trying to think if I've done any other stadiums. I've done like arena tours, but they tend to be sort of 20,000 top end. But yeah, that's probably the biggest.
Yeah.
It's weird though, because like the O2 is a huge venue, but then you compare it to the Olympic Stadium and you're like, it's like a quarter of it.
Yeah.
But obviously when you're at the O2, you're thinking, this is the biggest thing I've ever seen in my life. Like,
yeah.
Nice.
So is there anyone in the industry that you would still like to perform with in the future? So maybe an artist, or if there's a particular show that you've got your eye on that you want to do?
It's a hard one. I think I've been lucky to achieve quite a lot of the goals that I don't think I ever like set out like, I must do this show, but shows like Into the Hoods and something like hip hop that I watched from a young age and kind of was like, oh, I'd love to be in them. I've been lucky to kind of do them. I would love to work with Boy Blue again, because that was my kind of entry to the industry in terms of hip hop theatre. So I'd love to do like a brand new show with Boy Blue. And you know, I think with stuff like that, I think timing is key. If it's meant to happen, it will happen at some point. So I would love to jump on that bandwagon, and I think it's because I've been lucky with. For me, there was always like Boy Blue and Zoo Nation, and then I started with Boy Blue, and then obviously continue with them, but then moved into the Zoo Nation side of things, and have been, like I said, lucky to do a lot of the shows that I wanted to do with them. So it'd be nice to kind of like jump maybe back into Boy Blue at some point before I've kind of finished dancing, but I don't know when that will be. So we've got time. Artist wise, I love Janet Jackson, but I mean, the chance of me working with Janet Jackson living in London is probably quite slim, but you never know. But yeah, she's always been an artist that like has inspired me, but I don't really move like her dancers, which is, so I don't know if I'd want to. Obviously I'd love to dance for her, don't get me wrong, but I'm not like that kind of dancer. But I just have been crazy inspired by like her creative from a young age. Yeah, so she was in London and she wanted some, you know, white boys 5'8". I'm there.
Good for you. Don't blame you.
Don't blame you. I must admit, we saw her in Vegas last year, and oh my goodness, ridiculous. It was ridiculous.
Yeah,
and
I watched her tour in LA in maybe like 2010. That was pretty mental. She had like 4 dancers and that was it. It's like,
really?
Whole show with just 4 dancers. Everything was sort of stripped back.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was special, because what I was going to say about her, like her dancers was just, it was such a range, you know, the styles, because I know you're saying about different, or like her sort of style, but there was everything in there. It was just packed, wasn't it? And it was just, everyone was different. It was just brilliant. It was such a good show.
Huge production value.
Yeah.
But it's Vegas, isn't it? So
yeah.
Like, so, you're going to get that.
There we go.
So sort of moving on from that, obviously you've got the two sides of it, performing and creative. Which do you prefer? Or do you just like mixing it up?
Yeah, I think I just get bored really easily, like whatever I'm doing. So I do think I enjoy, and even the teaching, I think I enjoy it all evenly, if I'm honest. I never get like bored of like, for example, I don't sit here and go, I've taught for a year, I really want to perform because I'm bored of the teaching. It's just like, I want to perform because I just want to kind of ignite. That's all right. Yeah, kind of ignite that side of me a little bit more. So yeah, I don't know, if I'm honest, because I love creating stuff and seeing my work and seeing the result and being like, oh wow, that's like amazing to, you know, I made that, but I'm not even part of it. I'm like stepping away from it. So I like that feeling.
Yeah.
But I do love being on stage as well. I had a moment like a couple of years ago where I hadn't really performed loads, and I said to myself, like, I just want to do it. And luckily I jumped back into kind of the commercial industry first and then did a few shows. So yeah, it's hard. It's hard. I like to jump between two, and so far that's been able to work for me. So
keeps it interesting, I suppose. Then keeps it interesting.
Apologies.
Yeah.
Side, we've got a very mischievous cat, and
That's all right.
Always up to something. So the other one's asleep, and I knew she was going to attack her. So if you see me look that way, it's only because of the cat. She's a nightmare.
Talking about shows, Message in a Bottle, is that coming back?
Oh, yeah.
Yes. I can't say sort of when, but it will definitely be back. There's definitely plans for it. Like I said, we did the London run, and then we were meant to tour internationally. So as far as I'm aware, like the kind of latest update is that it will tour internationally. People are interested in seeing it, and it hasn't been confirmed, but I believe that it will come back to London, because I think that it deserves another run in London as well. It's so different and so niche in its kind of form that I think it will be back. I think it will do lots of stuff.
Yeah. Oh, that's the one show of Zoo Nations we haven't seen, so we really would love it to come back.
Yeah, we did. Yeah. See it, so we'd love to see that. Yeah.
And you
hopefully
in that as well if that goes ahead.
Yeah, at the moment we've kind of been asked like our interest in kind of continuing with the show, when it can come back. Obviously with the logistics of it being an international show, just makes everything so much harder. I think if it was just coming back as like a West End show, maybe they'd be able to get it going a little bit quicker. But with it being international touring, it just depends on all the international venues booking it, and then making sure you've got enough venues in the same sort of time period that want to do it, because you don't want like a date in March and then a date in June and then a date in December. You know, people can't really commit to that.
Yeah.
So I think they're just working it all out logistically, but I know that obviously Sadler's Wells put a lot of effort, let's say, into it, and they had a big plan for it, and I think it will continue.
Yeah. No, we were talking before we started this interview about your first lockdown experience, about keeping yourself fit and training, and you mentioned that you'd got quite into yoga. So do you want to explain to everybody how you keep yourself fit?
Yeah, I mean, first lockdown was like, right, what are we going to do? I think we sat for like a week, like me and my fiance, and then we were like, we need to do something. So we just started doing Joe Wicks's PE, and then we started doing like all the kind of Instagram live workouts, and we were just like killing ourselves, like doing like 3 workouts in a row, because it was like, well, we've got time. And then you kind of realize when you have all day, if you do like 3 20-minute workouts, it's like an hour of your life, and you're like, oh, now I can chill. So yeah, we started running, and then we started cycling, and then there's like a bouldering park down the road, so I started climbing a little bit, not too seriously. I know there's some people out there, friends of mine, that do it quite seriously, so I'm a rookie, I'm a beginner. And then yeah, I've always enjoyed doing yoga. I had like a back injury probably about 5 years ago now, that took about a year to recover, and yoga was my sort of rehab for it, to keep me moving. I was teaching, but you know what it's like when you teach, you never seem to warm yourself up properly or cool yourself down properly. You warm the class up and they're all good, but then you're up and down and all the rest of it. So I felt like I needed something else just to keep me moving. So I found yoga, and it really helped. And then yeah, through lockdown, I just needed something to do. So I just did my yoga teacher training, which was like quite an extensive 200-hour course. And I basically just like crammed it and did it in 6 weeks. So I did it more how you would kind of do it if you went on a retreat. So like every day I was just doing yoga. So that was cool. And then that sort of finished around July, and then obviously the studios and stuff opened up again. Yeah. So I feel like I just tried a few different things. Like, I'm going to run for like a month, and then I'm going to cycle, do a bit of climbing, do some home workouts, and then do loads of yoga.
Good for you.
Sounds like a great mix to me.
Yeah. So is it for the students that are listening? So it's integral that you obviously keep your body in tune, so you are able to perform at your best, right?
Yeah. Well, going from doing 8 shows a week, and Message in a Bottle was like one of the physically most demanding shows I've ever done. And because it was a mix of contemporary and hip hop, and in particular breaking, it was like two ends of the spectrum between like your contemporary technique and your physicality of breaking. So the one thing I didn't want to do was like just lose all of that kind of technique and fitness that I'd regained. So I just wanted to keep myself fit straight away. Again, we didn't know how long lockdown was going to be. We could have got a call at any time saying you got to come back in the show, and I just didn't want to be like out of shape or just unfit. I mean, the show was hard enough as it was. I didn't want to put extra weight on to make it even harder. And I just wanted to feel good. I think that's what it was for me. It was all about the way I felt. Yeah. It's never about the way I've looked. I've wanted to like be lighter, to be able to jump higher and flip and all that kind of stuff. But it's never like aesthetically, I want to look like this. I find it better just to like feel good in myself. Yeah. And then I can do my job and all the rest of it. But, you know, as soon as you start to lose your fitness, everything comes down. You're like, your mental health starts to fade a bit. Yeah, and you start to think about yourself in a different light, and it's all the rest of it. I think the more you can feel better, the better you're going to dance at the end of the day. It is that simple.
Yeah, it's perfect. I think you should be a motivational speaker. Honestly, because my concentration is never that great, but I am drawn in, and everything you're saying, I'm like, right, I'm taking that on.
That's good to hear.
I think you should. I think it's another little niche you can take on, an inspirational speaker.
For lockdown 3.
Yeah. Yeah. Right, is it me now?
It's you now.
Right, okay. Yeah. Okay, so this is just a random one. Right. What has been your weirdest costume and outfit you've ever had to wear on a job?
Okay, 2 come to mind straight away. Very different. One time I was on X Factor dressed up as like a packet of chips, like a McDonald's like packet of chips. And we were actually doing like a different artist. We were doing a dance, full like dance piece in like suits, like looking really cool. Like I was like, yeah, this is great choreo, it's really nice. And then they were just like, oh, is anyone up for a laugh? Like we need some people just to jump around in the back of this act. And they had like a milkshake, like the chips, and maybe like a Coke or something, or ice cream. That was it. And like, a lot of people were like, no, I'm not doing that. And I was like, yeah, whatever. Being like some of my friends that were younger, I think again, I was like 19, I just finished college, and we were doing X Factor. So we were like living our best lives, you know? We were like, yeah, we'll do it. And it was for Little Mix actually, that one, when they were on the show, not when they were like Little Mix as we know them now. So I think we were doing Marcus Collins as like dancers, and then, yeah, they just needed some people to jump around in the back of Little Mix. They must have been doing some sort of like diner kind of scene, and they just wanted to jazz it up a bit. So yeah, jumped around as a packet of chips for a little bit.
I remember seeing that, but now I'm going to go and find it and rewatch it and know that that's you.
And then the second one was when I was doing Take That at the Raw Variety. And again, there was 80 of us. And I was actually at college at this time. So it was a really good kind of opportunity to do the Raw Variety and Take That in one day. And it must have been like maybe 20 sort of professional dancers. And then they basically got the third year boys and some of the second year boys from Bodywork, I think from Bird and like one other college. And we made up like the extra numbers because it was a piece about like the evolution of man and like growing and stuff. So just had lines and lines of people doing like really kind of slow, almost like yoga-y kind of movement, like from the ground up. And we all had to wear just jock straps.
Oh.
Yes, as you started on your knees and look forwards, all you see was bare backsides of everyone. And we were obviously the college kids, so we were put at the back.
Oh man!
I hope they paid you for that.
Yeah, I mean, we were at college, so just getting paid was a positive. We were like, oh, we're all right.
I'll wear whatever you want me to wear. That's
good for you.
That's it. Oh, brilliant. I love it. What
about on the same sort of tone? Has there been any funny moments in your career that sort of stick in your mind?
Just too many when you're with like stupid people, you know. Like it's when you're with people for too long. So like tours or like obviously like in the early days working with Boy Blue and like, you know, going from show to show, just being around the same people and your stupid sides just sort of come out, and then obviously being tired on top of that as well. Yeah, stupid moments. One time I remember, it was funny for everyone else, not so much for me. It was when I was doing Thriller, and like I used to get quite, in terms of like my solo moments, I would get quite bored and I'd be like, I want to do something else. So every night I'd be trying to do something stupid, like, oh, I'm going to try and do this move that I haven't done in 5 years, or I'm going to do this move that I just tried yesterday at gymnastics and it kind of went okay on a sprung floor, you know. And I remember I was like, I'm going to do like a front somersault and I'm going to roll out of it. And I obviously hyped it up in my head, and I ended up doing like 1.5 and landing straight on my head. And then I got up and I was just like dazed. And I was just getting in the way. It was like one of them it's like the Beat It scenes, just like a battle where everyone's like flying in and there's just me like just like staggering around like a bit dazed, and one of my friends had to like move me out of the way. So that was probably a funny one. One of like my friends that's in the cast always tends to bring that one up. So I think that was funny for everyone else.
Oh, did you get a reaction from the crowd?
Yeah, I think people on the front row were sort of like, oh, because that you could tell like he's hurt himself there. Luckily, I was all right.
Like nothing's happened. It's fine. Yeah. Oh, bless you.
Isn't that the funny thing about theatre? Like, you can literally break all your bones, but the show must go on.
Yeah, and I remember being like, I came off after the number, and the next part was like all partnering and stuff. So I was like, well, if I don't go on, like one of the girls is probably going to hurt himself, because it was like the partners kept switching. It wasn't like you're with one partner and I could just say, so and so, stay off, we won't do this one. So I had to go back on and sort of help out, because yeah, like you say, the show must go on.
Yeah, so I'm literally talking to someone about that the other day. There's a ballet teacher where we teach, and she said she broke her hand and she had just had to go on with this broken hand. I was like, the show must go on.
Yeah.
The second time that's
yeah. I think when you step away from it, you realise that actually it doesn't need to go on and that your safety probably should come first. But in the moment, it's like, no, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that this show happens. And it's like, really?
Yeah, I know. Adrenaline kicks in, doesn't it? But yeah, really, if we're sensible, we should say, I should probably sit down and rest.
Yeah.
Or get that checked out.
Yeah.
I did one once. We went on stage and it's this sort of very, very intentional march coming on. And there was a mic stand. It was only a small venue. It was a mic stand. I trod on the mic stand and it whacked me in the face.
Oh.
Carried on, couldn't see where I was going. And then for the rest of the show, I was had sort of just a bloody mouth.
You got slapstick comedy.
It was really bad.
So, just one more question, sort of on your career. What are your 3 top tips for youngsters when they're out and about? Say that they got into the industry and to have a nice long career. What would be your tips to them?
I think being a nice person goes a long way.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be an idiot for no reason, you know. Obviously, you'll probably come across people that you clash with and all the rest of it, but you don't need to make that any bigger than it needs to be. I think being like a genuine person, having good morals, for me, will always like stand up above talent, because at the end of the day, when you're in rehearsal or on stage, you want to be with like good people, you know. So I think don't forget yourself because you want to be somewhere. You know, you don't have to act like anyone else. You can just be you. Train and train again, because I think we have to keep training. Like, there is a mentality of, I do my 3 years and that's my training done. Like, you know, I've got my certificate, and it's actually, that is so far away from the truth, I think, in dance and just in performing in general, because everything's ever changing and you can always be better. Like, we can always be so much better. That's why I like yoga, because it's called a practice. You know, you're always practicing. And I think that's the same with, definitely with like hip hop and the street styles. We train, like, you see the best, say, poppers in the world, and they're like training in their room. So they don't think that they've achieved the level of like discipline that they, you know, excellence, let's say. So I think just keep training and keep finding different ways to train and to motivate. You know, maybe that might be like going to a different person's class that you'd normally go to, or just going to like a freestyle session if you're not really one that likes to freestyle, or maybe you haven't done, you know, like contemporary, but you kind of like that way of moving. You know, you've got to always expand your different kind of I guess entry points into different styles, into different networks. How many have I said? 2. Research, and in lots of different ways. Like I believe that if you're teaching, you should know what you're teaching, where it comes from, who was the influencers, who started it, foundation, and with what we do, there's so much to research on, and there's so much that contradicts as well. So it means that you need to go even deeper, and then obviously make your own decisions on that. And then also in the industry, like research, know who the top working dancers are, know who runs that company, know you want to dance for Little Mix, know who choreographs Little Mix and who's maybe the dance captain. Like, look at your ins. Do you look like them? Like, where do they hang out? Not in socially, but like, what classes do they take? What was their journey to get them to where they are now? And this is why I like doing stuff like this, because I like to look at people that inspired me and look at their journey. Mine's not going to be the same, but it might well be similar if I want to get to a similar level. Like, we don't just walk into like Zoo Nation, for example, without having any foundation within the street styles. So if your like goal is to be in Zoo Nation, but you have never done popping or locking, but you're pretty good at house and breaking, like, go and train popping and locking. Like, it's not, I think it's quite easy to make steps towards where you need to be just by researching and looking stuff up. The same way as if you want to be on the West End, like, look at the agents that represent West End performers, look at the casting directors, look at the roles that suit you. I think there's so much research that you can do into all of it. And whether, again, you're a teacher, a dancer, or a choreographer, like, you're always researching. I think the first thing that I do when I get like a brief creatively is to look at the brief from the client's point of view and research what they want. Because a lot of the times the wording they use, for example, it might be like, oh, we want like a robotic kind of style. And I go, oh, well, there's popping, and they look at it and they're like, oh, that's right. So you've got to really try and unpick their ideas and do research. Or sometimes they, they're not a dancer, so they can't necessarily communicate their ideas in the way that we think. They're, oh, we want something that looks very regimented. Okay, so do you want like an army type feel? No, that's not what we want. So you've got to try and like research a lot to give people options. So yeah, I think that's my main one, really. Something I heard recently on a podcast, a guy called Luke, or goes under the name of Duke. He has his own podcast. He talks to a lot of underground dancers in the UK, a lot of like hip hop dancers. And one thing he always refers to is that we are guests in the culture.
That's right.
And that's not necessarily because of our race. It's because we didn't grow up in the Bronx at the time when hip hop started. So we're all guests. So as a guest, you have a responsibility to understand where you're going and who was there before you. And that's something that I'm trying to like make sure. I think I've always been doing it subconsciously because of, I guess, my race, and like I identify with Black culture a lot, but I am not Black, I'm a white kid from Essex. So you've got to make those links yourself. And I think you don't have a right to really pass it on until you understand a certain level of the links and the history.
Yes.
And then you can do a justice to it and pass it on in the right way. And, your students that then become teachers have your influence, and it filters through. That's kind of the way it was designed.
Yeah, totally hear you on that same page completely.
Well, is it me next?
It's you next.
I think that's all the biggies done, all the big questions done. So now,
right,
just a little bit of fun.
Okay.
Now it's time for the quick fire round.
Right.
Are you ready? So we'll ask you a question. The first thing that comes into your head, you must say.
All right.
It's a rude word, don't worry, we'll bleep it out. But hopefully,
cool.
We'll see. Right, okay. Me first. Are you ready?
First. Ready.
You ready, Lindon?
Yes, I'm ready.
Right, let's go. Favourite movie?
Honey.
Favourite music artist?
Janet Jackson.
Favourite hobby?
Rugby.
Favourite food?
Curry.
Mornings or evenings?
Evenings. But I wish it was mornings.
Or Uber?
Say that again, sorry?
Underground or Uber?
I mean, underground, but Uber if I've got the money.
Oh, risotto or lasagna?
Risotto.
Me too. Nike or Adidas?
Adidas.
Nike or Nike?
Nike.
Adidas or Adidas?
Yeah, Adidas.
Okay. 90s hip hop or
Noughties
R&B?
90s hip hop.
Roger Rabbit or Steve Martin?
Roger Rabbit.
Prefer to be a student or teacher?
Student.
West End or film?
Oh, West End. Yeah, West End.
Usher or Neo?
Usher. No comparison.
Yeah.
And the most important question of all, Galaxy or Cadbury?
Yeah.
I think Cadbury.
Oh yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you.
Yeah, I do like Galaxy, but I just never really have it. There's so many more options with Cadbury. I feel like you're having Cadbury loads of times without actually knowing it. You know, buttons and this and that.
Such a good point.
Yeah.
It's a great point.
So you're a bit of a Galaxy head, aren't you?
I am, but I do. It's very 50-50. It'd be a hard question.
Any
Oh, sorry, that's me.
Yeah. So I've got one final question. So if you were hosting a dinner party,
yes,
6 seats. Us 3 are there because it's our interview. You're here with us, so we get the prime seats, right? But there's 3 other seats, and they can be taken by anybody that you know or is famous, that is no longer with us or alive. Which 3 people would you choose to sit in those seats, and why?
I'll bring my ballet teacher back because she's no longer with us, and she's like probably the most influential person for me in dance and life and teaching and everything. So definitely that would be 1. Number 2, Michael Jackson, because that's just someone that I would have loved to have met, who inspired me a lot. And 3, I would probably go Don Campbell.
Yeah. Well, you're bringing them all back.
Oh, they're all
bringing them all
great.
back.
Yeah.
What would you ask Don Campbell?
I would just get him to tell me his experience of locking, because there's so many kind of different opinions. And I met him in 2008 in Vegas, but I didn't really get to talk to him much, because I was sort of 16 and a bit nervous, and also just because it was a big event and he was busy. But I've taken a lot of the kind of pioneers locking classes over my time, and I've taken from his son Dennis as well. And like the way that Dennis explains it, obviously, is like, it's my dad's style and this and this, but I would just love to hear it from Don, because like the way I see him move is different to anybody else in the world. And even the people that trained under him have their own styles, which is all what it's part of. You listen to a lot of his interviews, he's like, yeah, I want you to take my style and make it your own. Like, I want to see me, but I don't want to see a copy of me. But I would just love to just like hear his experience, because he's just so unique. He's a dancer that was never meant to be a dancer. Mm-hmm. You know, he never tried to be anything. So, and with him passing away like fairly recently, I guess, it'd just be interesting to sit down and hear his views on stuff, I guess.
I can't wait to go to that dinner party.
Yeah.
Your ballet teacher. She sounds like she had a big influence on you.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. We actually, going back to the start, when we were talking about the championships, when we put that together in, you reminded me, 2007, it was only MySpace at the time. MySpace was the tool to get in contact with. So we was getting in contact with people to do it, and we actually had a message from Don Campbell to say, like, I love what you're doing, keep it up. And I wish I still had that MySpace.
Yeah. That's amazing. And that's the thing, like, you realize that all these people are human. And that's one great thing about working in the industry, because like the first time you meet a famous person, you're like, oh, they're a real person. And obviously along the way you meet more and more people that you always felt like you were so separated from, but actually they're real people, and they've got thoughts and opinions, and most of the time they're happy to sit down with you as well and like help, because at the end of the day, like the principles of hip hop, you know, peace, love, unity, having fun, it all comes down to the same thing. It is meant to be about having fun and passing it on, and it's never this divide that sometimes is there of like, we're the pioneers and you are guests or whatever. It's great that people like that reach out and just like, I love what you're doing. Like, you're taking my style amongst other styles and making an event for people to come and experience them.
Yeah, exactly. And I think people like that understand that to have longevity, it has to be passed down.
Of course, yeah.
I'll be precious about it as much as, but it's important for them to pass on that information to us. So it's a sort of a two-way conversation, isn't it? You know, so that make sure that this lasts for a long, long time.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, because when we're gone, we need it to be lasting. So like by that time, we're lucky that we've still lived in the lifetime of the pioneers. And a lot of them are still with us, and there's a lot of people with a lot of knowledge that obviously still alive, but by the time that generation moves out and then us, it's like all our students are having it like third, fourth hand. So yeah, we've got to make them connections.
Absolutely. It's been amazing today.
It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you, Lynn.
Thanks, guys.
I feel like I have learned so much. It's been really, really nice. You're such a lovely person, and thank you for your time. Really.
No, thanks for the invite. Like I said, it sits well with like, you know, what I think should be happening. And I think conversations like this, if anything's positive out of this year, it's that people have been more proactive online. There's a lot more content out there for young people, especially to dig in and hear about people's stories, and hopefully, you know, you just inspire one person, and then it's just a result, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So lovely.
Well, we wish you the best of luck when you go back into, you know, getting back in the swing of your jobs, whatever they may be. I know you're teaching at the moment, but when we get back in full swing, so I hope you have a very long and enjoyable rest of your career as well. And we hope to have you back at some point, maybe to do a little bit of teaching for us. That'd be great.
Definitely, yeah. When we can get them workshops happening again.
We've actually got your face on the wall behind us.
Yeah, you're up there.
We put
wow.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're gonna need to get you up there again.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Thank you so much, mate.
No, thanks, guys.